Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. There's this ancient bit of wisdom from Heraclitus.
Oh, the Greek philosopher?
Yeah, 5th century BC. He said, the only thing that doesn't change is that everything changes. Sounds deep, right?
It does. Classic.
But here's where it gets, well, really interesting. Despite knowing change is constant, less than 30% of organizational transformations actually succeed.
Less than 30%. Wow. Succeed in improving performance and sustaining it long term. That's a huge failure,
It
right?
really is. It makes you wonder, why? If change is inevitable, why are we so bad at managing it organizationally?
Well, I think it highlights that just knowing change happens isn't enough. Successfully navigating it, especially in complex organizations, that's a whole different ballgame.
It seems it's often not about, say, the strategy being wrong.
Exactly. It's more often about overlooking something. Well, something more fundamental. Maybe about human nature itself.
That feels like a really crucial point. So, okay, today, our mission is to try and cut through some of that noise.
Right. Take all this research on organizational transformation.
Yeah, the what, the why it's so hard, and maybe most importantly, how to actually get it right.
Huh?
And distill it down for you, our listener.
We want to unpack why so many of these ambitious transformations just falter.
And maybe offer some ideas on how organizations can succeed, based on what the sources say.
Yeah, we'll look at core concepts, some practical methodologies, and even a real-world case study later on.
The goal really is to give you those surprising facts, that actionable understanding, a shortcut to being well-informed on this.
Okay, let's dive in then.
So let's get started. Where else but with the relentless pace of change itself? It's a bit of a cliche, but it's true.
The present doesn't continue in a straight line to the future. Yeah.
Think about the job market. Just that alone, there's this projection, 85 million jobs lost by 2025. Sounds alarming.
It does. But the other side of that coin is often missed, isn't it?
Exactly. The simultaneous creation of 97 million new jobs.
That's not just a small shift. That's a massive, almost unprecedented restructuring in a really short time frame.
And what's driving it? It's not just market forces in isolation.
No, it's tied to these broader trends, right? Things reshaping how we work, how we live. Our sources talk about tomorrow's world.
Yeah, like innovation needing to balance accessibility and sustainability. That's huge now.
And people wanting purpose in their work, not just a paycheck. Plus, hybrid work models. They're becoming the norm, embracing remote work, diverse cultures.
And that shift from having to sharing, you see that everywhere. Plus, obviously, the rise of AI and the metaverse.
These aren't just buzzwords anymore. They're
As
tectonic shifts. They directly challenge how organizations are currently set up.
they demand entirely new ways of working, totally new skills. It forces a rethink of what jobs even are.
Which is why organizations have to transform, really.
Yeah.
Adapt or become obsolete. It's driving these new professional landscapes.
Right, like data and AI specialists, green economy roles, people and culture becoming central.
The care economy, engineering, IT, and a whole new wave of product, sales, marketing, content jobs tailored to this new reality.
So this naturally brings us to a key distinction. What's the difference between just change and actual transformation?
Good question. Change can be, a new process, maybe a tactical adjustment. It might come from a new vision, or maybe a crisis forces it.
Okay, so change is like tweaking the engine.
Sort of, but transformation.
Yeah.
That's like asking why you have that engine in the first place, or if you even need a car anymore. It's deeper.
Ah, okay. A systemic overhaul, rethinking and reshaping the whole organization, fundamentally.
Exactly. And organizations jump into these transformation journeys for a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah, what are the main drivers our sources point to?
Well, often it starts with declining performance. Business results just aren't meeting expectations.
Makes sense. Or maybe the need for a totally new strategic vision, perhaps pushed by a specific change management effort.
That's a big one. And of course, new leadership. A new CEO comes in, they have a new agenda that often kicks things off.
Right, and then there are those external pressures you just can't ignore.
Absolutely. Fierce competition, mergers, acquisitions.
New laws or regulations popping up, ethical concerns sometimes surface, financial crises, obviously.
And the big one always looming. The sheer speed of technological change. It just keeps accelerating.
But it's not always negative, right? Sometimes it's about seizing new opportunities.
Definitely. New chances for explosive growth or major productivity gains can also be the catalyst for transformation.
So when you tie all these drivers together, it's clear it's not just about spreadsheets and strategy docs.
Not at all. These are deeply, deeply human endeavors.
Which leads us right into maybe the most critical piece of this whole puzzle, The people.
The human core.
Yeah, because you can have the best strategy, the slickest tech. But if the people aren't on board, engaged, it just falls apart.
It really does. And understanding how the human brain reacts to change is key here. Initially, it often sees change as a threat.
Like a default setting, threat
Yeah,
first.
seems like it. Which can lead to feelings of, suffering, stress, but also potentially challenge.
Okay, so the big question then becomes, how do we help shift that perception? Move it from threat to challenge or even opportunity?
That is the million-dollar question. And our sources suggest it's about cultivating specific qualities and environments, those that act as catalysts.
What kind of qualities are we talking about?
Contexts that actively promote learning and innovation. Transparency is crucial. Also care and respect.
So environments where it's okay to learn, okay to try things, where people feel valued.
Exactly. Those become fertile ground, not just for transformation, but for better results overall, team and organizational.
And to create that fertile ground, two concepts really jump out from the research. First, growth mindset.
Ah, yes, versus the fixed mindset. Big difference.
A fixed mindset is more about like, I need to prove what I'm capable of, or I need to do better than others.
Right. It's very comparative, very focused on validation, whereas a growth mindset, it's all about improvement, developing capabilities.
Striving to improve on your own past results, it's more internally focused, about evolution.
An internal compass always pointing towards growth. That's a good way to put it.
Okay, that's one. The second concept, maybe even more crucial, psychological safety.
Absolutely fundamental. And it's not just about, being nice or creating a safe space in that casual sense.
No, it's deeper. It's the shared belief that the team, the environment, is safe for taking interpersonal risks.
Meaning people feel they can speak up with ideas, questions, concerns, maybe even feel obligated to, without fear of being shut down or punished.
There is a striking line in the sources. If we prioritize silence, the team will lose an opportunity.
Powerful, isn't it? Low psychological safety leads to apathy, maybe anxiety. People just hold back.
But when it's high, that's where you get comfort, sure, but crucially, that's where learning and high performance happen.
It really is the bedrock for innovation. If you can't risk suggesting something new, how can you innovate?
So the practical question is, how do we actually build it? It sounds simple conceptually, but it's hard work in practice.
It is. But the sources give some solid, actionable tips. First, consciously ensure all voices are heard. Make space for everyone to contribute.
Okay. Second, replace blame with curiosity.
Yes, instead of, whose fault is this? Ask what happened here, and what can we learn from this? Big shift.
Third, leaders showing their own vulnerability. That seems counterintuitive sometimes.
But it makes sense. The more infallible or perfect leaders try to seem, the more distant and unapproachable they become. Vulnerability builds connection.
Right. Fourth, practice empathetic listening. Really trying to understand the other person's perspective before jumping in with your own.
Crucial. Fifth, encourage healthy debate and disagreement. Conflict around ideas, not people, is productive. It sharpens thinking.
Sixth, offer specific recognition. Not just good job, but I really appreciated how you handled X because Y.
Yes, specificity matters. And finally, consistently reframe feedback and failure not as judgments, but as essential opportunities for learning and growth.
It really feels like visionary leadership ties all this together. A leader who paints that clear, inspiring picture of the future.
And combines it with open communication, a culture flexible enough to adapt, and a real investment in resources, time, money, training.
Those are the fundamentals for successful transformation. Psychological safety acts as that foundation, giving people the courage to change and innovate.
It really sets the stage for adaptation and experimentation, which is what transformation requires.
Okay, so we understand the human side, the individual reactions, the need for psychological safety. But how does this scale up? How does it become something that guides a whole organization?
That's where culture comes in, those unwritten rules of how things really get done.
Edgar Schein, a giant in this field, basically defined it as a pattern of basic assumptions a group has learned as it solved its problems.
Of external adaptation and internal integration. Yeah, a bit academic maybe.
A more accessible take comes from Carolyn Taylor. The patterns of behavior that are encouraged, discouraged, or tolerated by people and systems over time.
I like that one. Encouraged, discouraged, or tolerated. Toleration sends a powerful message too.
So culture isn't just like a mission statement on the wall.
Not at all. It's a complex system, a mindset, a set of values and principles that genuinely guide decisions day in, day out.
And what's really fascinating is how it impacts people one person at a time. You can't just flick a switch for new culture.
No, it's built moment by moment through countless subtle, often nonverbal cues. The sources highlight three main ways culture is created nonverbally.
Okay, what are they?
The first is behaviors, especially leadership models. How leaders visibly act every day sends the loudest signal.
What they do in meetings, how they handle emails, interactions.
Exactly. It shows what's acceptable, what's expected, what's rewarded.
Okay, behaviors. What's second?
Symbols.
Yeah.
And this isn't just logos. It's about where the budget goes, where effort is allocated, who gets promoted, who leaves, and why.
Ah, so the tangible signs of what the organization truly values. Office space design, titles, benefits, they all tell a story.
They absolutely do. They show where the time and money are really invested.
And the third source.
Systems. This is the plumbing of the organization. Planning and budgeting processes, performance reviews, recognition systems.
Measurement, reporting, training programs, even the org chart itself.
Right. These systems either reinforce the culture you want or they undermine it. If your values preach collaboration, but your system rewards individual heroes.
People will follow the system every time. Makes sense.
So this leads to a really powerful model for changing culture. Results come from actions,
Actions come from beliefs.
and beliefs come from experiences.
So if you want to change the results, you have to go way back and intentionally change the experiences people have day to day.
Precisely. New experiences shape new beliefs. New beliefs drive new actions. And new actions eventually produce new results. It's a chain reaction.
Which means culture isn't just some soft HR thing.
Absolutely not. It's a strategic vehicle. It provides coherence for the entire organization. It influences processes, products, customer experience, decisions, structure, everything.
Okay, so we've covered the why of transformation and the what of culture. Now let's get into the how. How do you actually do transformation successfully?
Our sources outline a pretty comprehensive playbook. It starts with having an integral, holistic vision of the organization.
Seeing how everything connects mission, strategy, innovation, customer experience, quality, leadership, behaviors, beliefs, values, processes, systems, KPIs.
It's all interwoven. You can't just change one piece in isolation.
Right. And this holistic view informs a structured methodology. The sources describe four main phases.
Phase 1, create the future.
Okay, what's the goal here?
To get all key leaders genuinely aligned around a single, simple, clear narrative, one that connects strategy and culture to a compelling future vision.
So in this phase, you're defining things like purpose, principles.
Exactly. Purpose and principles, a 5 or 10-year vision, clear goals and checkpoints, the strategy itself, and critically, the cultural guidelines, those key behaviors you need.
And weaving it all into a cultural story.
Yes. A good story mobilizes people. It needs to be concise, direct, connected to the business, consistent, applicable, and unique.
And the role of leaders in this phase.
Absolutely critical. They have to be the flags of the culture, visible reference points, experience generators.
Meaning they have to consciously decide which behaviors to reinforce, model them consistently, observe what's happening, align their own actions.
And constantly engage people.
Yeah.
Lead by example. It's about walking the talk, visibly and daily.
Okay, that's phase 1. Create the future. What's phase 2?
Phase 2, understand the present.
So looking at where things are right now.
Exactly. The goal is to expand leaders' awareness of the current culture.
Yeah.
What's enabling progress? What's holding it back? What messages are employees actually receiving?
Establishing that baseline. How do you do that?
Through a mix of quantitative research questionnaires, maybe cultural archetype assessments, and qualitative research.
Like focus groups, interviews.
Yes, to really uncover the underlying motivations, behaviors, beliefs, and their impact.
You mentioned cultural archetypes. That sounds interesting. Based on Yum.
Jung and Pearson, yeah. They offer a deep structure for understanding motivation and meaning, asking, who are we as an organization without judgment?
So archetypes like the innocent, the hero, the explorer.
Revolutionary, ruler, sage, caregiver, creator. Lots of them. Each has a light side, its strengths, and a shadow side, its potential pitfalls.
So maybe a company is strongly the sage, great at analysis, deep knowledge.
But the shadow side might be analysis paralysis, always needing more data, missing opportunities. Understanding that archetype helps pinpoint cultural shifts needed.
Got it. So understand the present using tools like archetypes. Then phase 3.
Phase 3, analyze the gaps.
Okay, comparing the future vision with the current reality.
Precisely. You build what the sources call a Depora model.
Yeah.
Basically a from-to framework, from where we are now culturally to where we need to be.
And then?
Then you prioritize. Which symbols and systems need to change first to accelerate that cultural evolution? These are the cultural levers.
Cultural levers. The sources of cultural messages that, when you change them, actually move the needle on culture.
Exactly. Things like leadership behaviors, decision-making processes, how innovation happens, communication styles, problem-solving approaches.
Recognition systems, meeting structures, even office layout, these are all potential levers.
Yes. Anything that shapes the daily experience and sends messages about how things are done here. Changing these levers intentionally is key to evolving the culture.
Okay, create the future, understand the present, analyze the gaps, leads to phase 4,
Phase 4, plan and execute.
where the rubber meets the road.
Pretty much. This is the synchronized implementation, deploying actions related to those prioritized systems, symbols, and behaviors.
How do the sources suggest approaching this execution?
Often with a two-layer approach.
Yeah.
A broad cultural transformation umbrella for initiatives that cut across the whole organization.
Like leadership development or communication campaigns?
Right. And then specific implementation strategies for each individual initiative or project that's part of the transformation.
And there are different ways to roll things out.
Yeah, you could go top-down, driven from senior leadership, or bottom-up, empowering teams, or select existing projects with high potential cultural impact and transform them.
Like using an ERP system implementation, not just as a tech project, but as a cultural change lever.
Exactly. Or using agile pilots to test changes quickly, generate MVPs, get fast feedback, and adapt. Leader development, ambassador programs, reviewing core systems like planning or performance, all examples.
So that's the transformation playbook. But planning is one thing. Getting people to actually adopt the changes is another. Let's talk change management.
The art of ensuring adoption. And this is crucial because, as we said, people don't necessarily fear the new thing itself.
Right. The sources suggest they fear feeling incompetent or unprepared when faced with it. That's a fascinating insight.
It really is. And it explains why that 70% plus failure rate for change initiatives is so high. It's reported by major firms like EY, Forbes, McKinsey.
It's not just a feeling, it's a major strategic blind spot. If people fear incompetence, then introducing new tech isn't just about the tech.
Exactly. It's about building their confidence, providing the support they need to master it. It shifts the focus entirely.
From here's the new system, learn it, to here's the support you need to succeed with this new system.
Makes a world of difference. And the data backs this up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Effective management of the human side means projects are 6 times more likely to hit objectives.
6 times. And 5 times more likely to stay on schedule, twice as likely to stay within budget. The ROI on good change management is huge.
Conversely, ignore it, manage it poorly, and you get resistance, both active and passive.
Projects stall, resources get wasted, obstacles pop up everywhere, and you just don't get the results you expected. It's not an optional nice to have.
So let's define it clearly. What is change management according to our sources?
It's the structured approach focusing specifically on the human dimension of change.
Giving people the tools, the methods, the support to understand, accept, and even co-participate in the transformation.
Yeah, and its objectives are pretty clear. Generate understanding and trust. Align expectations to build commitment. Keep people informed to reduce uncertainty.
Mitigate the negative impacts on the organization, and develop the necessary skills for the transition.
The sources also talk about a transition process. Preserve, discover, appropriate.
Meaning you need to understand where your audience is now, their maturity, their readiness for change.
To design the right interventions to help them move through discovery toward actually owning and using the new ways of working, appropriating the change.
And a very common model used to track this individual readiness is 80 Curway R from Prusy.
Right? Widely used. It's a great diagnostic tool. Each letter stands for a critical stage.
Awareness. Do people even know why the change is needed?
Desire. Do they want to participate and support it? This is often the biggest hurdle.
Knowledge. Do they know how to change? What the new process or skill is?
Ability. Can they actually implement the required skills and behaviors, turning knowledge into practice?
And reinforcement. What mechanisms are in place to make the change stick long term?
Understanding where individuals or groups are stuck in that 80 care sequence tells you what kind of support they need. Is it a communication issue? Awareness? A motivation issue? Desire? A training issue? knowledgeability.
Let's use AI integration as an example. That's a huge change many organizations are facing. What challenges does AD Care help address there?
Well, you definitely see employee resistance. That's often a desire issue, maybe rooted in fear of automation
Right.
or job insecurity.
Okay. What else?
There's the impact on existing processes people need, knowledge of how their workflows change. Ensuring the AI project aligns with strategy addresses awareness, and developing new skills requires knowledge and ability building, plus reinforcement.
So AD Care helps structure the human support needed for that kind of complex tech implementation. How is change management itself implemented? Are there phases?
Yes, typically 3 phases. First, prepare the ground.
Getting ready before the main project launch.
Exactly. Building trust, understanding the current situation, defining what success looks like, assessing risks, mapping out who's affected, all the groundwork. Initial surveys, strategic alignment meetings, kickoffs.
Okay, prepare the ground then.
Phase 2, implement. This is executing the change management plan alongside the project rollout.
So communication plans in action, leveraging those transformation leaders or champions.
Managing the organizational impacts you identified earlier, providing training and capacity building. It involves detailed stakeholder engagement, sponsor support, communication strategies, training delivery.
And the final phase,
Phase 3, sustain. This is critical, but sometimes gets less attention.
making it stick.
Yes, integrating the new ways of working, the new knowledge, the new capabilities so they become business as usual. Ensuring those new behaviors are embedded for the long term.
How do you do that?
Analyzing performance data, looking at adoption metrics, speed, utilization, proficiency, maybe 80 car surveys again. Sustaining the momentum, transferring responsibilities from the project team to line management, and celebrating successes.
And now we're seeing even more advanced tools emerge here, right? Like machine learning.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. ML-based dashboards that can track appropriation in near real time, readiness to change models using AI.
Predicting success based on variables like AD car scores, organizational network analysis data, the overall environment, digital maturity.
Exactly. They can even help identify key influencers and predict their potential impact, positive or negative. It adds a whole new layer of insight to managing the human side.
Okay, this is great theory and structure. Let's make it concrete. Tell us about that real-world case study, the telecom transformation.
Right, a fascinating example. This was a merger of two huge telecom players in Latin America, created the biggest company in the sector overnight.
And the project scope was enormous.
Massive, integrating 5 core back-end processes, HR, finance, supply, projects, involving more than 12 simultaneous technology projects.
And this wasn't just a tech integration. It was happening inside a broader cultural transformation effort.
Exactly. Impacting 24,000 people directly, including 14,000 field workers. The scale is just immense.
So what was the core challenge from a cultural perspective?
Defining a completely new shared culture for this merged giant.
Yeah.
They did an initial diagnosis, looked at each company's profile, how they perceived each other.
And the goal was to create a one-page strategic culture document.
Yes, defining everything from purpose and values to key cultural principles. And crucially, doing it through a joint effort involving leaders from both original companies.
How did they structure the work?
They set up 3 main strategic avenues. First, focusing on leaders, developing their cultural skills, creating a network of leaders who would actively model the desired new behaviors.
Makes sense. Second,
Client, a whole program of projects aimed at putting the customer truly at the center, using tech to get that 360-degree view.
and third.
Internal processes. This was the program for revising those core back-office processes and implementing the systems needed to integrate HR, finance, supply, and projects across the merged company.
Okay, let's focus on that internal processes program. What were some key strategies they used there?
Well, first, storytelling. The source emphasizes we live by stories. They crafted a really powerful narrative,
What was it about?
focused on purpose, emphasizing that people don't buy technology, they buy solutions. And they build this cool identity around reaching the peak, like climbing a mountain.
Alpinist teams.
Yeah, 4 teams, each representing a core area, RH, finance, projects, supply. It gave people a clear metaphor, something tangible and inspiring to connect with.
That's clever. What else?
Second, holistic vision. They were careful to communicate how all the smaller tech projects linked up to the bigger program goals, giving meaning to both the whole and its parts.
So people understood why their piece mattered in the grand scheme.
Exactly. Third, experiential learning. They didn't just talk about the change. They created immersive experiences.
For project teams and employees.
Both. To make them really feel they were on the mountain and part of the change, making it memorable and engaging.
And fourth, Knowledge transfer. How do they train so many people, especially field workers?
They used a mixed strategy, internal facilitators for some parts, but also online training delivered in a really novel format, like a Netflix series.
Bite-sized, engaging episodes for frontline staff.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Designed for broad reach and easy consumption, making learning accessible and hopefully less daunting.
So, looking back at that massive undertaking, what were the key learnings highlighted in the source?
Several powerful ones.
Hmm.
First, a clear purpose isn't just nice, it's vital. It fuels everything.
Second.
Team alignment isn't a one-time thing you achieve at kickoff. It requires constant effort, communication, and reinforcement throughout the journey.
Third, that point about solutions.
Mhm.
People don't buy tech features. They buy solutions to their problems. Keep the focus there.
Fourth, experiences like that mountain climbing metaphor or the Netflix training are far more impactful than just sending out memos or communications. Engage people emotionally.
And finally,
That really provocative thought, go live, launching the new system or process, is often just a false summit.
the idea that you think you've reached the peak, but you haven't.
Exactly. The real work of adoption, embedding the change and achieving the benefits, that continues long after the launch date. The climb isn't over.
False summit. That's such a potent image for transformation projects, isn't it? It perfectly captures that potential trap of declaring victory too soon.
It really does.
Wow, that really brings together so many of the threads we've discussed. Transformation is essential, clearly, but it's incredibly challenging.
And the human element, fostering that psychological safety, nurturing a growth mindset, it's not just important, it seems paramount.
Culture isn't just fluff, it's a powerful strategic tool that shapes everything.
And having structured methodologies, like those 4 phases or the 80KR model, provides crucial guidance. They're the maps for the climb.
But ultimately, as that telecom case showed so vividly, real-world success comes down to intentional, visible leadership and sustained effort, well beyond that false summit.
Absolutely. Consistent effort over the long haul.
So as you, our listener, reflect on these ideas, the dynamics of change, the power of culture, the human need for safety and growth, we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Given everything we've unpacked about how organizations transform and the deep influence of culture,
What's maybe one unwritten rule in your own professional environment, that pattern of behavior that's encouraged, discouraged, or tolerated, that, if it were changed, could unlock significant innovation or improvement?
something to think about. Keep observing, keep learning.
And keep diving deep. We'll catch you next time.